Welcome to the Naturally Ecstatic Podcast. I'm Pete Warnock, a breathwork, embodiment and meditation teacher, and I'm a curious explorer of whatever it means to be fully alive. This podcast is a space where we can dive deeply into the art of living naturally, joyfully, and living life on purpose, exploring techniques from the way in which we breathe, to the way in which we move, to how we care for our body, our emotions, our mind, and our spirit. I'm going to share with you methods and concepts that you can use to explore breathwork, nervous system regulation, emotional alchemy, and the power of aligned intention. All of this alongside topics close to my heart, like ecstatic dance, the power of singing, managing chronic pain and depression. I'll also be talking about the life hacks that I use for living a naturally ecstatic life and conversations with other inspirational people living their version of a naturally ecstatic life. Whether you're here to upgrade your health, find more presence, reconnect with your natural state of aliveness, or you just want some light entertainment and a different perspective, then you're in the right place. And in this episode of Naturally Ecstatic, once again, I'm joined by my dear friend Clara Apollo, a natural energy healer, Qigong teacher, and the host of her award-winning podcast series, Qi Time. Hey, Clara.
Hey, Pete. Thanks so much for inviting me back in. In this episode, we're going to be chatting about all things breathwork. You won't be surprised to hear.
Breathwork? What's that?
Exactly my question. Can you answer this question? What is breathwork and why isn't it called breathplay?
Well, there you go. It is breathplay at the end of the day. We're all playing with our breath, you know. Breathwork, breathplay, whatever you call it, it covers everything that is involved with breath. Everything that is involved with breath, you know. And there are so many different camps that have kind of jumped on the breathwork bandwagon because breathwork has become so mainstream nowadays, and there are so many different spiritual disciplines and spiritual practices and physical practices and all sorts of things that have an aspect of breathwork in it. And because breathwork has become popular, then there's lots more coming forth now.
It's such a key, isn't it? You know, without breath we wouldn't be here for more than a couple of minutes.
No, it's actually much, much longer than that. The world record freediver is over 21 and a half minutes.
No!
21 and a half minutes. I mean, they have huge lungs, 8.5 litre lungs.
Wow.
And
they're not born with those, though. They have to train to get them, do they?
I mean, this person was born with big lungs, but they still had to train.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is a lot that you can do to train and expand your lung capacity. And obviously to expand the level of CO2 saturation that you get. When we hold our breath, we think we're running out of air or we think we're running out of oxygen. But actually what's happening is our CO2 levels are coming up. As combustion happens in cells, oxygen is burned and CO2 is released. And when we start to perceive higher levels of CO2, we start to get this panic. And it's the CO2 levels that make us panic rather than the lowering of oxygen.
Wow. So it's a biochemical response, isn't it?
It is, but it's a response that we have kind of learned to actually react to, and we've become super intolerant of our CO2 levels.
So what I find fascinating about the breath is that it can change your state. And I think it was in the first episode of this series that you were talking about how you first connected with your breath at a really young age due to trauma coming in. Is that right?
Yeah, I first realised and experienced the relationship between my pelvic floor and my breathing diaphragm when I fell onto and was impaled up through my perineum. And breathing became impossible. It was too painful. So I held my breath until I passed out. And then when I was convalescing, I had to really, I learned to breathe really softly and gently and up into the top of my lungs and hardly use the movement of my diaphragm at all, because any movement of my diaphragm hurt my perineum. So, Yeah.
That's a shocking introduction to the power of breath work then, isn't it?
It is. And it was amazing as far as later on I really realised, this correlation between the pelvic floor and the breathing diaphragm. So
yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? And the way that you were also speaking about how it helped you to manage the different kinds of pain and bring them into sort of a sensation arena rather than it's all pain. You were explaining this before, weren't you? But how breath had helped you with that shift of coming out of the panic and the pain into this is a sensation that my body is giving me as a
absolutely. And even with panic, I mean, when I was young, I was utterly terrified of werewolves. I saw a werewolf on a television program, thought it was real, and then was utterly petrified of the dark. And I would lay in bed breathing as shallowly and as small as I possibly could so that I wouldn't be witnessed and noticed by the werewolves that were going to come and eat me. You know, I had this whole belief that because this thing looked at me in the eyes on the TV screen, I thought that it was after me, you know. And then from then on for years, I was terrified of the dark, and I'd have to sleep with the light on, but I would literally breathe so slowly. My parents would have to empty out all the drawers. They'd have to open up all of the cupboards. They'd have to look under the bed just to prove that these weren't there. And I would lay awake until I fell asleep, breathing as slowly and as tinily as I possibly could, in order to not become into their attention. You know. Right.
So what's coming up here is a fear response.
Yeah.
But also it was bringing you into a quieter sense of breathing. So did it have an effect of calming you?
It did have an effect of calming me. But it was also connected to a trauma. It was there because of a trauma response. So in my later life of exploring my breath work and then going into longer, slower breath holds and longer, slower breathing practices, I had to work through the trauma that I had attached that to, you know. So breath work has been a really deep journey for me, for sure.
From such an early age as well.
Yeah.
And you also had a job as a glass blower in your teens and early 20s, didn't you?
I did.
Using breath in a different way. I just thought to bring it in.
And it was using breath in the most gentlest, softest form that you can imagine. They were tiny, tiny little puffs of breath. And almost just using the cheeks, the pressure in the cheeks to blow in. You know, so it wasn't even using the lungs particularly. It was more just using the pressure in the cheeks. So,
but it's so fascinating, isn't it? That just that small amount of pressure in the cheeks would expand a piece of glass.
Absolutely.
And make something. It would show you the effects of the breath, and I think that's one of the almost mysteries of the breath and the air element is you can't see it, but you can feel and discern and experience the effects from it, you know, and we have to trust that the air that we're breathing is actually going to be healthy for us as well. There's a lot of associated factors with the breath work and the air element, aren't there?
There are, and the air is getting more polluted at the end of the day, you know it is. And that's why it is so important for most of the time that we breathe through our nose, because our nose does filter our breath, you know. So
yeah, and you've got something on your YouTube channel, the Pete Warnock Naturally Ecstatic, about nose versus mouth breathing.
Yeah, I have, and I mean that came kind of in response to a lot of what is put out there around breath work nowadays. Is nose breathing is utterly the king and mouth breathing is bad for you. And I wanted to really challenge that, because actually there is a time and a place for mouth breathing. There are things that mouth breathing practices do that nose breathing practices can't, as far as helping to heal trauma, as far as really taking us into a more embodied state. You know, for me, in my experience of playing with my own breathing, I noticed that nose breathing takes me into more control. It takes me, I mean, it's amazing. It kind of cools the brain. It takes me into a really clear, focused, controlled state. and mouth breathing takes me into wild abandon, and we need both.
We do need both, and we need to be able to express. I mean, you can't make sound with nose breathing. Maybe you can a bit humming. That's coming later. But actually, it activates your voice, doesn't it? The breath activates your sound. I mean, you wouldn't be able to hear us now if we weren't using our breathing and our air element.
Exactly. Speaking, singing is breathing.
It has to be, doesn't it?
It is expression. Without mouth breathing, there is no expression.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So breathwork is everything to do with our communication, and as well as our life force energy.
Yeah. We're communing with life through breath. And breath is life at the end of the day.
It is, because without it we wouldn't be here. So I'm glad that you are here listening to the Naturally Ecstatic Podcast with Pete Warnock and me, Clara Apollo. And we'll move on to the application now of breathing in bodywork. I know one of your favourite topics, as well as Tantra. So
yeah, I mean, I started my self-employed life as a body worker, and then quickly discovered that through the use of bodywork, breathwork really needed to come in as a key piece of embodying, of releasing, and of healing, and taking people deeper into what is held in the body. When we have any accident, anything that shocks or traumatizes the body, that trauma gets locked into the body, and it gets locked into the cellular memory of the body. Some say it's into the muscle, some say it's into the fascia, who knows? Some say it's in the water. Probably all of it, but actually through taking really clear attention and intention to these places, and with bodywork you do that through pressure, and then if you're bringing intense pressure and intense awareness into those spaces, and you open up a space for deeper breath and for more exploration and more expression. When we express, we release. I mean, if you think of a dog runs across the road and gets knocked by a bicycle or something like that, the dog will shake itself, it will make loads of noise, it will release all of the tension, it will release all of the trauma that happens there. It will shake, it will pant, it will breathe really hard, and it will make sound. We don't do that. We have an experience, and we tend to just bottle it up.
Well, the feeling is coming about locking it in. If you don't express, it gets locked in, and it gets locked into, tends to be the weaker places in your body, doesn't it? So needing someone that can help us to sort that out, or often by yourself being able to presence that place with your calm compassion. And then as you take a breath, you send intention to healing to go to that place. I mean, that seems to be central to a lot of healing modalities, is using the breath and the focused intention to bring in healing energy. Yeah,
it is. It's bringing present moment to past locked in the body.
Giving it permission to move on and flow.
Yeah, well, when you bring presence to something, the past can't stay there. Right. It just transforms it into now.
And our systems are always trying to clear, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's just getting through the blockages, and so breathwork helps us hugely to unlock these old patterns of being and of behaviour. Yeah,
literally, when we bring presence to something, it starts to unwind. The past starts to unwind from it, and then we start to set ourselves free.
So this helps us to change our state from, being in a trauma response into...
Yeah, it really does. And breathwork is the key state changer. It's the master state changer. You can change your state from any particular state you want to. You can actually choose which states you want to actually access through knowing the right breath and the right intention. When you've mastered your breath, you can take yourself anywhere with it. But what it's really, really good at is, if you're in a trauma response, or if you're in a particular state that is negative, or that is perceived as negative, then we can transform that by using our intention, our attention, and our breath.
Yeah, magical. So what made you want to train to be a breathwork facilitator?
I had some really strong bodywork and breathwork sessions in the early 90s. And they were so utterly transformational. I had a Vivation session in 95 that was just, and Vivation is quite similar to rebirthing. It's conscious connected breathwork. It's a long process of conscious connected breathwork, fully in, release. And I just had such a profound experience of becoming nothing and becoming everything and becoming divine, and knowing that I am everything and nothing, and was taken out of my normal everyday bubble of living with chronic pain. Suddenly I was completely free. It wasn't me that was experiencing the pain. There was pain there, but it wasn't affecting me. It wasn't touching me. I was separate from this that experiences the pain.
So Pete is pointing to his body there.
Yeah.
So one could say, were you disassociating, or were you actually just dropping back into your background presence of being the eternal spirit that you are, that is witnessing what the body is going through?
Yeah, basically it wasn't that I was leaving myself. I was coming so deeply into myself. And I experienced a state of myself that was so deep and real, and that the physical aspects of life can't touch. So real essence of being.
That is very powerful, and so you wanted to share that with other people.
I did, absolutely, and that became my mission. To actually start to share that we are not this pain, we are not this suffering, and there is a really simple way through. And so I started exploring all sorts of different breathing patterns and tools, and different styles of breath work, and meditation and all sorts. Tantra, I started exploring all sorts of all of these things, and integrating them into the way in which I worked as a practitioner, into what I shared as a teacher, and into how I live my life.
Oh, exactly, and into your relationship with the lovely Kalindi.
Well, that came later.
Oh, did it? Oh,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead because
that's okay. Yeah.
So it's this spectrum of different breathwork practices, from the really strong hyperventilation ones, and then the super slow calming one. It's almost like there's a breathwork for every season and every.
There is. There's a breathwork for every state. Every state that is out there we can access through amending our breathing.
So you must have taught thousands of people in your lifetime. If you've been doing this since, how many years have you been breathworking for?
33 years. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I've been practicing it with myself for 50 odd years.
And then sharing with others for 33.
Yeah, sharing with others for 33.
There must have been thousands of people that you've reached with this work by now.
Absolutely, thousands. Yeah, in all sorts of different ways, through body work, through breath work, one-to-ones, through workshops, through festivals, through all sorts of different things. Spontaneous meetings with people. I can't actually stop helping people, and sometimes I'm walking down the street and I can see someone huffing and puffing through a big open mouth, and I just kind of go up to them and say, I really want to help you, and actually if you just closed your mouth and breathed through your nose for a while, it would help you no end.
What's their response to you?
99% of the time they actually take it on board. It feels like they take it on board. Okay. Yeah.
And we don't know the ripple effect from that which we share with people, do we? You might share something like that.
I do know. Yeah. I mean, there was a person at a festival, and this is exactly. I remember being in a festival and working with them and encouraging them to do a particular practice. And then 2 years later, I saw them at another festival, and they said that one little breathwork practice that I shared with them completely transformed their life. It stopped their asthma. It just changed the entire way in which they were living and breathing.
Well, it brings you back into choice and personal control.
Yeah.
And making decisions for yourself, which is huge. And then finding it's a medicine as well is just brilliant. But with this whole variation of different breathwork out there, I mean, it's not one size fits all, isn't it? It's not just all the same, is it?
No, it's not. No, there are so many different ways, and as breathwork is kind of expanding, people are kind of discovering more ways and pushing it and exploring it. But no, it's not all one size fits all. Some breathing styles suit some people more than others, for sure. And I mean, one of the things that I've seen a lot over the last few years is a lot of people really pushing the nose breathing piece. And especially around asthma and stuff like that. And before I'd come across that, I had a couple of clients who very asthmatic again, and who I taught them specific mouth breathing practices. And within doing these mouth breathing practices, they healed their asthma. And when I say healed, I mean they met the emotional content that was creating the asthma and released that and moved through that. So they released the trauma of that, and then it was gone. You know, what I see, the nose breathing techniques where you're constantly really slowing your breathing down and you're really refining your breath and stuff, and that's amazing for diminishing the symptoms of asthma. Okay, incredible for diminishing the symptoms of asthma. Doesn't cure it. It doesn't get to the root cause. You know, for me, conscious connected breathing through the mouth is what gets to the root cause of things. That's what I've experienced in the 33 years that I've been doing breathwork.
So if you're a breath worker, how do you feel about that? Would you like to comment on this? This episode is also available on the Naturally Ecstatic YouTube channel, where you can freely make comments, and Pete will really happily, if I give him a little bit of a nudge, go and have a little reply. Look at that comment that came in, because we really love to hear from you. And this is a discussion, it's a conversation. And there are, we've all got different viewpoints. But, Pete's coming from a place of deep care for others. And, well, certainly, he started with himself. So
and from years and years of working with trauma,
Right. What really works for people, not just palliate symptoms, but what can really help get to people.
And I totally get that by totally softening and refining our breathing and nose breathing most of the time, it takes the effects of asthma right down. But it doesn't get to the root cause.
I'm just going to say, that's not just asthma. Personally, if I get a bit agitated, I will use that and to calm myself down. But that sometimes it doesn't completely work. Sometimes I need to go and shout, sing, or something else. There needs to be another expression, and then I can return back to a softer breath.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when we're in an agitated space, we need to escalate our energy to meet the kind of ferocity of that energy. So if we escalate our breathing to meet that, and then we slow our breathing down, then slowing our breathing down becomes much faster. And if we do that 3 or 4 times, it really, the speed in which we actually come down from this heightened state of arousal, of nervous system arousal, is much, much quicker than if we just tried to slow breathe. Yeah. And sometimes you just can't slow breathe your way through something.
You think, I'm getting it wrong, I've done it wrong, and that makes it
And you can have
worse.
Frustration, and you can have all sorts of things. But if the body's still kicking off, trying to just jam your foot on the brake doesn't really help. But actually escalating, first of all, meeting the intensity with your own energy, that puts you in control, and then you take it down.
Or it puts you into an acknowledged state of, I am experiencing this.
Yeah.
I need to experience this, and when you've done that, there's an honouring of that experience, and then you go, but I don't want to keep experiencing this because it doesn't feel so great, and then you can bring yourself.
But also, then that comes into, for me, breath is a piece; it's not the whole thing. There has to be attention and intention with it. What are you putting your attention on, and what are you trying to achieve? Where are you putting your mind? Where are you putting your awareness? Are you in rejection of something? Because if you're in rejection of a feeling and you're breathing, you're just going to make it stronger. But if you know that you can let go of the story as to the who, the why, and the what of whatever this is going on, and you just meet the feeling, the raw feeling, which is always life, and you welcome that feeling, let that feeling be really strong in you and take that in, let it empower you, then you transform the whole thing.
Beautiful. I love the movements that you're making here as well. If only we could video. Sometimes we'll do a video of you as well. Yeah,
absolutely.
Because it's a whole body experience, isn't it? And also one of the things that you work with is ADHD. So would you like to speak into that as to how breathwork can help with ADHD symptoms?
Yeah, basically I've been dyslexic and ADHD all of my life, and I was late diagnosed with ADHD, but I knew I had it. But it's quite a rigmarole to get that label. And I was kind of anti-labels for quite a long time. But actually then I suddenly realised that there are certain things that when you know that you fit into a particular bracket, there are particular ways to help that bracket, you know. And with a lot of the breathing exercises that I do, it's very much about nervous system regulation, you know. And so I have used my breath throughout my life to regulate myself, to regulate my nervous system. And then I started having more clients who have ADHD and noticed that the practices that I use on myself work really, really well with my ADHD clients. So, I mean, they work with everybody, but there are certain things that ADHD people, and I know that's a sweeping statement because there's lots of different variants on ADHD, but there are particular practices that work incredibly well in regulating the nervous system.
Ooh, I'm curious to know what they are.
Well, one of them is the humming breath. So not the bee breath, which they teach in yoga, but actually this is a very, very soft hum. It comes from Kashmiri Shaivism. It's a practice that I taught a panel of doctors once. They were doctors and mental health nurses. And they said that if they could use this practice in the NHS, they could get rid of sort of 75% of the meds that they were giving out for mental health.
Ooh, that is not to be quoted anywhere, but it's just experience. Yeah,
that was my experience. And this practice, I mean, to see the state of the doctors afterwards was actually quite amazing, because suddenly they were just completely soft and just really totally present. And they all felt it. They all noticed it in just a few minutes of this breathing.
And once you have an experience, it cannot be taken away from you.
No, you can't unexperience something.
You can't unsee it, unfeel it. Wouldn't it be lovely if you just gave us a little example of a humming breath practice?
Yeah, okay. Okay, so sitting with your spine long, putting your awareness in your body. The actual breath, the in-breath is long and slow through the nose. You just breathe in to the nose, filling your belly, then filling your chest. And then you're just going to hum, and you've got to hum your entire exhalation all of the way out. You're going to hum all the way out. And your hum is going to be as soft and as long as it possibly can be. And it doesn't matter if the hum wavers. You're not trying to tune in with anyone. You're not trying to make it beautiful. You're just making the softest, most gentle hum you can make. So just hum your breath all of the way out. When you come to the end of your breath, you take a breath in through your nose and you hum your breath out again. And as you're humming your breath out, notice if you feel any vibration in your rib cage, because this sets off a sound vibration that moves through the whole of the skeleton. So just placing the awareness in the ribs and just see if you can notice where you notice the vibration in your ribs. There's no pushing, there's no force. And the longer and softer your hum becomes, the more the vibration starts to come.
I can feel my heartbeat in it.
Yeah, you can feel it kind of vibrate. Yeah, and just keep going with that. And you come in touch with your heartbeat. You come in touch with the more subtle aspects of sensation within the body. You're toning your vagus nerve, which turns on the parasympathetic nervous system. You're turning on your rest and digest and heal mode.
I just took a great big yawn then as you said that, the vagus nerve, because that shows you you're relaxing and the jaw can then relax more, and then the humming can get you so soft even I can't hardly hear it. I can feel it.
And then you can go into silent humming. So on the last hum, you just let it go silent, silent. It's still going through the voice box, but it's silent. And then you do the same on the inhalation, soft, long, slow, through the voice box. silent. And then you just rest in your breath, in presence. And you let yourself deeply enjoy this. Doesn't take long, 2 or 3 breaths, and we can be in total presence, you know. I mean, for me, just in those 2 breaths, even as I was teaching it, my clarity, my eyesight's changed.
Yes.
I can see energy around you. I can feel an expansiveness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel this sublime balance that I really recognise as being a deep place of restfulness.
Mm.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And this is what Naturally Ecstatic is all about. Because we live in our busyness, you know, and there is always natural ecstasy just beneath the busyness. We are all in presence. Life is going on beneath the busyness. And when we just take a moment to drop beneath that busyness, we come into presence, we come into relationship with the life that is really who we are. And then we notice our magnificence, you know, then we can shine ourselves out to the world. You can't force yourselves out into the world, but wow, you can drop in and you can just rest in the radiance of your being.
Making me think about the words that we use to describe the inhalation and exhalation, like inspire and expire. That inspire coming from that in spiritus, you know, that sort of divine embodiment piece. You're given the gift of life through your inspiration. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, in many religions, breath and life and God are the same word, you know, it's the same thing. Can you hold your breath? Can you control your breath to the point where you can stop, actually properly stop? Life will make you breathe. So we think that we are doing our breathing. Yes, we play with our breathing, we move it around, but actually breath has the final word. Breath has the final inspiration. It is. And it inspires to breathe in, you know, it makes it happen. And the more we play with our breath, the more we start to explore it, the more we master it, the more we can actually expand the ways in which we can breathe, but let breath do its thing through us.
Getting the word trust, just trusting your breath.
Yeah.
Trusting this pattern, this rhythmic wave that occurs. Because as you said, can you hold your breath? I often feel like I rest in it sometimes, particularly at the end of the out-breath. That is a very restful place of curiosity for me. And I trust that the inspiration will come when it's ready. I don't have to search for it.
No.
But I enjoy languishing in this liminal zone of expansion and being and presence and healing. It feels really deeply healing to be in that place.
Yeah, and there are 4 phases of breath, really. There is the inspiration. Then there is a hold at the top of the breath. You know, when we are completely full, we're full and we keep expanding into consciousness. And then we breathe out. We release, we let go. We're detoxing ourselves. And then when we're empty, if we hold there, we fall into emptiness. We fall into almost death. It's seen as death in the cycle of breath. And this is where what has been known as box breathing comes from. It's a Kabbalistic practice, a 6-level practice. What is mostly taught is the first level, which is breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. But there are 6 levels of energetic expression and energetic exploration through using this breath, which takes it to whole new levels. Yeah. And there are so many different aspects within the breath that go on that people just don't realise. We have our breathing diaphragm, but there are 3 other diaphragms that come into play with our breathing. And there's also our 3 dantian, which you know from Qigong and from martial arts, the three places of being, three reservoirs of energy and of being. And when we learn to breathe into these three, and we use the four diaphragms, we suddenly experience ourselves as this kind of cosmic pump that is just happening. And I remember teaching this to you a long time ago, and it's just the most exquisite experience, because suddenly you experience yourself as the whole of the cosmos breathing. I mean, it's beyond where you can imagine it can go.
Allowing yourself to be breathed, that's part of what I remember that. If I just trust, then I will be breathed. And if I bring my awareness to these different places and phases within, and notice their expansion and release as well, and then they're doing it in unity, and then I'm doing a lovely Qigong move where the arms come out and then they come to meet each other. Because Qigong used to be referred to as breath work.
Absolutely.
Because you said breath and life and whatever.
Breath, intention and attention.
No, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And so this is why breathwork actually covers all disciplines, because it has to be.
If you look at any of the spiritual practice or any of the spiritual disciplines, whether it be prayer, whether it be chanting, whether it be singing, whether it be all of these different things, they are all involving slowing of the breath. All involving slowing of the breath.
Becoming aware of it and becoming a master of it. And when you can share that with someone else, which is something you've been talking about in your Living in Love series here on the Naturally Ecstatic podcast, then that starts to become really interesting when you get in relationship with your breath and with that of another.
Yeah, there becomes co-regulation. But also, when someone has been consciously practicing their own breath work, and they know how to change their state, when they teach, there is a transmission happening. And I don't teach from my knowledge, I teach from what's happening in my body. And so when I'm guiding a breathwork practice, I'm exploring it in my own body, it's happening in my body, and then whoever's I'm teaching experiences that happening. And that's what I'm seeing isn't necessarily happening in a lot of the world of breathwork, where people are learning really, really fast. They haven't got the practice behind them. And often people will do a breathwork training and then can't quite get the clients. So they create a breathwork training themselves. And so there's a huge amount of breathwork trainings coming out that have not actually got the real embodied experience of years and years of practice. It happens in everything. It happens in yoga. It happened in massage. It happened in Reiki when I was teaching Reiki. But I would always say, if people are looking to work with someone who teaches breathwork, make sure that they've really done their own practice for years, and also that they've practiced with others. That they've learned how to hold space properly with people.
And that includes being able to transmit their energy frequency.
Yeah. And that's not a forcing, a pushing of that. That's just a natural happening, through you being in presence and letting presence move you and inspire you.
Beautiful. Well, as you can tell, breathwork is one of Pete Warnock's favourite topics, but he has others that are going to be spoken into in future episodes of the Naturally Ecstatic Podcast. I'm so excited for you. I really am glad that this is happening. And is there anything that you would just like to say before we wrap up this episode now, Pete?
I would say that our relationship with our breath is our primary relationship. When we can fall in love with our breath and with being breathed, then we fall in love with presence, we fall in love with life. And when we're in love with presence and in love with life, then we're in love. And that goes out into every aspect of our lives. So don't just learn breathwork and do breathwork practices. Love your breath, and let your breath love you, because that's a whole other flip. you know.
Oh, my
Absolutely.
heart is expanding now. Is it, that heart math practice of breathing in and out of your heart? That's what's coming up for me now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So powerful. You breathe love in, you breathe love out, and then the field of love just expands, and you get connections, and you just breathe more love into the world, and that's what we could do with more of.
Absolutely. And we can't affect the rest of the world, but we can affect the people who we connect with.
Yes. Yes, and just to wrap up that thing about the power of the air. If the air can hold frequency and vibration, then when we breathe that out, we're adding to the pool of air, aren't we?
Yeah, and consciousness. I mean, we're consciousness at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Brilliant. So how can people find out more about you? Where can they go?
Naturally Ecstatic, which is naturally-ecstatic.com. And I'm on Instagram, Naturally Ecstatic. I've got a very small but growing YouTube channel.
Yeah, please do subscribe. We'd love you to.
And there's obviously this podcast. So just look up Naturally Ecstatic Pete Warnock and you will find me. And you'll either find my online courses, which will teach you how to retrain the way in which you think, you breathe, you meet life, and you embody yourself, you live. Or you can come to one of my workshops, and I just love being in the room with people, sharing this stuff and helping people just unlock so many different levels, It's beautiful.
Meeting with such compassion. That's what you do. And I think if you sign up to your website, you get a free practice, don't you?
You do. You get a free state-changing practice.
Yes.
Which is really good for no matter where you are, no matter what's going down. If you need to change your state, you can use this practice to come back into a present state.
Wow. Well, thank you so much again for sharing all that you do, and I hope you've enjoyed this on the other side of the mic here. And as I said, we'd love to hear from you. Do comment on the YouTube channel or via the website. Is there an email on the website?
There is an email on the website. Yeah, there is, definitely. So thank you, Clara. Beautiful to be with you again. I look forward to the next one, which won't be very long.
Yeah. Let's see what we can get you to talk into next.
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you. And just remember, when you breathe better, you live better.